Hello all. In this video, we will discuss how orders are going to be handled in our database. So we have a release. We can see that there are 6 different sellers who have that for sale, and we can click add to cart, and this item will be added to um, cart, and we can buy it. You can also make an offer. We will discuss that later. So let me show you how this looks from the side of the seller. So here is an order that I have received. Here is what we can see here. So let's take a look at the URL /sell/order ID-3. Right, yeah, so here it is. I think that this ID is the ID of my user, probably, and the 3 is the sequential number of orders that were made in my shop, basically. We have 5 items. It was created at some timestamp. We can see the unarchive button, which means that there's probably an archive button also. Last activity. We can see that you can buy several items in the same order. We can see price, we can see fee that Discogs takes for processing those orders. The subtotal for 5 items, shipping, €10 standard by our local postal service, total fees, and so on. So we can see that there is a user who bought this. It's their reviews, 100% positive. Here is the feedback that I have left for the buyer, and the buyer can also leave feedback for the seller. And there is also some communication about this order. So it starts from the top, from the bottom. So the order was created, then it changed to invoice. The status of this order changed to invoice sent. Then the buyer sent the payment. Order changed status to payment received. Then I changed it to shipped. Then I sent a comment and set the tracking number to something. Right. So we definitely have a new anchor called order. What sort of attributes do we have here? We have the created timestamp, order. When was this order placed? Timestamp. Something like this. Then its status, is it archived or not? Is this order archived? Yes, no. And example is yes. Next, we see order contains several items. This is obviously a link. So we have order and item. An order can contain several items. An item can only one order can be added to only one order. So it's going to be 1 to n. For every row, for every item added to the order, we have the price and the fee. And we know that we have this price in the in our offer, right? So we have a in our item. So we have what is the sale price of that item, right? In the seller's account currency. And we know that there are we can make offers, and we can actually sell for a different price. And also I'm going to discuss that in a separate video, because what I'm trying to say is that it makes sense to copy this price from the offer price to the actual selling price for two different reasons. Well, first, because we have offers, and second is because this may be a good idea. We'll discuss that later, because it's got to be. And for that, we can this is an attribute of this link. So we item included in order. What is the sale price of this? What is the final price of this item? Type is monetary. Example is 5. And for the same reason, we probably want to store the fee here. Fee is a this box has some formula for the fee. We can calculate that during when the order is placed. But if you think about what happens later, maybe years later, Discogs can change the fee structure. They can just choose another percentage. or they can even make it more flexible, like they accept this like a fixed amount plus a percentage of to handle more expensive items. So it makes sense to store it here because it's going to be more reliable in the long run. And this is a very common pattern specifically for monetary values. You often want to store the exact amount that you calculated at the time of the sale and have it as a sort of a reference, even though in many cases you can like recalculate it, but so many things um, can go wrong here that you want to have this sort of reliable information. Again, mostly because this is financial information. What is the marketplace fee for this item? Again, monetary 0.45, for example. Subtotal for 5 items is going to be calculated from those two attributes. We also have shipping for this order. There is only one shipping, and how much the shipping costs is taken from shipping policy. I mentioned that in the previous video. I think that I'm gonna dedicate a separate video to discuss how shipping policies work. But what we want to understand here is first, which specific shipping policy was chosen here at when this order was placed, because we know that shipping policies can be changed later, but we want to know what happened today. I mean, we know later what happened today. So we shipping policy. We just know that there is this thing called shipping policy. It's quite complicated, but we're not interested in details now because we can one order has only one shipping policy, and shipping policy applies to several orders. A shipping policy can apply to several orders. An order can have only one shipping policy. We will change that the other way around so that it's going to be 1 to n. And we want to store the price of shipping price and the fee amount that this COGS takes from the shipping price. So again, we need to create an a link attribute. So order slash as shipping policy. What is the shipping price of this order? Monetary 11 and order has shipping policy. What is the marketplace for this order? Shipping amount. Again, monetary. That's going to be 0.65. Cool. So we have prices for each item. We have shipping price. We have fee for each item and the fee for shipping. We can calculate total, and including fee. Right. So now we have 4 different states of this order. And it's gonna be what is the status of this order? It's gonna be either or. So as far as I remember, there is the new order, invoice sent, payment received, and shipped. There are probably others, but yeah, there is a canceled thing, and there is probably refunds are handled somehow, but I don't remember the details. We can extend our logical schema later when we think about that. So for now, let's do this new invoice sent, payment received, shipped. All right. One, when we changed the order to shipped, you could also specify the tracking number. So let's add an order. What is the tracking number of this order? It's got to be string and LA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. Here we have an attribute that makes sense only for orders that are in a specific state. And this is called tangled attribute. And we can specify this detail here for orders in state shipped. We're doing that in a human readable way. If you will have it in a more when you're gonna implement that. You will somehow have that as a more um, more formalized way so that you could actually validate this. So you could try to prevent the situation where we have a discrepancy between two states, like the order is not shipped, but it has a tracking number, or the other way around. But in practice, it makes sense not to be too strict here, because actually both situations are possible if you think about that. First, we can definitely ship without any tracking, and in more complicated cases, like you marked order as shipped, you set a tracking number, but then the order was lost, it was refunded, it was canceled. I don't know, but you still, so it changed the status, but it still has the tracking number. So be careful with sort of premature um, validation, data validation, because you can find yourself in a situation where you have to relax it first somehow, and then implement the new combination of statuses and data that you didn't think before. And that's why this all of this catalog is so sort of like I don't know, flexible, because we want to show what can be, but we don't really invest a lot of thinking into how to make it super strict. So you can see that we have a history of status changes. So we have what we have here is a current status of the order, but we also want to remember when those status changes happened. This is a very typical situation. It's called historized attribute, where you have it's also can be audit log when you have a history of changes in a certain attribute. We can model that directly. So we can introduce a new anchor that is called status change. One order can have several status changes. An order can have several status changes. The status change belongs to only one order. And for each status change, what is the new value of status change? So here it also becomes a bit awkward, it's also typical for this sort of how to say that bookkeeping anchors. You have sort of a real anchor, like an order, but you also have things like status change, and it's like status change doesn't have its own status, right? It's just a container it's just a record about the status change of a different anchor of order, right? So what is the new status value? I don't know, included in this status change. This is getting verbose and awkward. So maybe we don't want to overthink that. And what is the new value of this status change? So it's also either or. And so here we copy paste it for simplicity. Maybe it makes sense to sort of, we could say same as order status. See above. Sometimes it may be possible to have this to have different values here because again think about what happens when like few years later we may find that some of the statuses we no longer use. And so we can remove that from the order anchor, but we want to keep historical information. And we keep all historical statuses in status change. This is not very common situation, but it's possible. So here we can just write that it's the same as in order. And another important thing that we want to know about a status change is when did this status change happen. It's also timestamp and we add a random timestamp here just so that people looking at this row quickly got a feeling that this is just a timestamp. Cool. So messages. Another thing that I see that change, we can different people and entities have changed, did this change. So let's and we can see here that two of us two are people, and there is also a special account Discogs. But apparently this account is going to be like a pseudo user, so we don't need to do more complicated modeling of this, and we can just use it as a link. So one user can, of course, make several status changes. One status change is made by only one user. All right. So user status change. A user can make several status changes. A status change can be made by only one user. All right. If you look at this list, you can see that it's 4 different things that are set on a timeline. So we have status from the bottom, status change, payment, status change, message, set tracking number. We don't discuss payments here, maybe later. This is also, this can be complicated depending on how many payment methods Discogs support. So when you look at things like that, you can have a sort of, you can think like that it needs to be a polymorphic object, right? So several different types of things that can be set on a timeline that we have here. But actually, this rendering this is just how it's rendered to the user. So if you think about that, we just fetch list of status changes, list of messages that were done, that were sent to each other. We see when the tracking number was set. We fetch information about payment, and we just render it in the code. So it's not necessarily the polymorphic sort of the data structure on the database level. But sometimes it makes sense to implement it in a exactly like that, in a polymorphic way. We will talk about that elsewhere. But for now, one thing that came to mind, so we set the tracking number, and we can add another row. When was the tracking number of this order set? For orders in state sheet. All right, even though we already we are not already even sure that this restriction makes sense. So we have again timestamp 26 20 000600. Nice. What else? We have messages. So of course we have a new anchor. We user and message. A user can send several messages. A message can be created by only one user. End to end, one to end, one to end. And message belongs to a certain order. Order can have several messages, and the message can belong to only one order. An order can have several messages. A message can belong to only one order. And of course, we want to somehow store what is the text of this message. It's definitely string. Thank you for the order. It's human readable. And we also, when was this message sent? Timestamp. Okay. Cool. Finally, I may be missing something here, but I think that this is more or less correct. What we won't be talking about shipping address here because it's interesting topic, but this video is already quite long. We can talk about the feedbacks. So feedback and the rating. So Discogs has positive, negative, and neutral rating, and accompanying message. And rating is as for buyer and the seller. And both can not leave the feedback. Feedback is not sort of mandatory, right? So we have four similar attributes. So order, what is the feedback to buyer for this order? Feedback message to buyer for this order. String great seller. We also have what is the feedback message to buyer, great buyer, of course. What is the feedback message to seller for this order? Seller. Trust. Delivery. Great service. Also, we have the feedback itself. What is the feedback buyer rating for this order? It's got to be either or four. And what is the seller rating for this order? Also either or four. It's gonna be positive, neutral, negative. Well, Uh, Here we don't specify that uh, these those attributes are not required. Well, we never did that because in this model we sort of treat every attribute as uh, optional, as not required, even though for the business itself, this like some attribute values are necessary. So we will just handle that in the code. Our system will make sure that order contains all the necessary information. The reason is that, again, if you think about the entire sort of timeline of this business, we can find out that much later it may be necessary to remove the value of attribute, even though it was necessary before. Because, for example, we can, like, even for order feedback, we can somebody can leave unfair feedback, and we can ask the support to remove this feedback. I don't know how it's going to be handled. Maybe it will be just marked as feedback removed. I mean, there is going to be a separate attribute for that. But uh, we don't uh, specify here that feedback can be missing, because, like, you can think that maybe not provided, right? But we don't do things like that. If it's not provided, then just there is no definite value. Yeah. One thing that I thought about is that we can also, what is the order number? I think that it's gonna be string, or maybe we can generate this order number by taking the ID of the user and adding a sequential number. I have no idea how it's implemented in this scope specifically, but we can use this approach here. So to find the full order number, we will query we will take a user ID from this order and the sequential number, and here you are. Cool. So that's it for today. There are still some questions to be smaller questions to be discussed here, and we didn't talk about payments. So this is for the next video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.